Thank you to those alumni who have come back to campus today, and hopefully you'll be joining us tomorrow. I'm Tuck Coop, the Executive Director of the Cal Alumni Association, and it's really a gas to be so intimately involved in homecoming. And thank you very much for coming. This event is sponsored by the Cal Alumni Association and our award-winning California magazine, which we're incredibly proud of. And just as one brief advertisement, we were just awarded the top Alumni Association magazine in the country, and we're awfully proud of it. Yeah, thank you. I take full credit personally, of course. Yeah. The good news is I've got virtually nothing to do with it, but the woman who does, the editor of our magazine, Wendy Miller, is sitting right over here. You know, and it's been somewhat of a lightning rod itself, but one of the reasons we're so proud of the magazine is that we think it showcases the intellectual capacity of this university, on the fabulous things that we do, and we do them on a daily basis. Just another quick advertisement. The Alumni Association, our mission is to support the university, first and foremost. And we're doing that by connecting as many of our 450,000 alumni out there to campus and to each other as possible. We're totally independent, totally self-funded, and if you got a little extra space in your handbag, pick up a copy of the magazine on your way out, the most recent edition, and we've got an envelope out there if you want to stuff $100 bills in there. That would really be it doesn't have to be. That was a little joke. That was so. The future of Cal athletics, and I've got to confess right off the bat, and this is a very personal statement. I'm a huge fan of Cal athletics. I'm an even bigger fan of the leadership on this campus from the chancellor on down. I'm also a businessman. We run a business at the Alumni Association, and I'm cognizant of the fact that it's important that we live within our means. And it is totally fortuitous that we're having this conversation today with the athletic director. This has been in the planning for some time, and obviously there have been some very interesting announcements over the last few weeks. So the timing is perfect. And shortly I will be introducing, or actually Murray Sperber will be introducing Sandy Barbour, our athletic director, and CW Chuck Nevius, columnist from the Chronicle, and you're in for a treat. This is a hot topic. There's no question about it. At the end of the interview, there will be an opportunity to ask questions, and I think it's unnecessary, but I'm going to do it anyway. This is a Cal crowd. This is a respectful crowd. People are here because they want to hear what the athletic director has to say. You'll also have an opportunity to ask questions yourself, and we're really pleased that you're all here. So let me introduce the moderator for our event today, Professor Murray Sperber. Professor Sperber is a visiting professor in the Graduate School of Education, and interestingly enough, the author of Beer and Circus: How Big-Time College Sports is Crippling Undergraduate Education. Murray received his PhD here at Cal in 1974. And again, because I may not have a chance to get back up here, I want to thank you all for coming. And no matter where you fall on the side of financial support for the athletic department, we're all bears. Professor Sperber, right there. Murray?
Thank you, Tuck, for the nice introduction. The Cal Alumni Association asked me to read the following before I do the introduction. Before our program begins, I'd like to draw your attention to some general rules of civility. Berkeley has a great tradition of free speech, of course, and we hope that you'll honor it by showing all audience members respect, and particularly in the question period. They asked me to emphasize the following. Please turn off your cell phones. I know if I hadn't just read this, I wouldn't have turned off mine, and inevitably it would have gone off. Personal photography and videotaping of today's proceedings is prohibited. The next one I really like. Please refrain from blocking anyone's view with banners or signs. Even signs that say, "Go Giants, go," or "Beat UCLA." Tuck mentioned the question and answer format. You were given a form when you walked in that had a card on it, as well as an evaluation form of this session. If you have a question for our guests, please write it on the card and pass it to the aisle for a staff member to collect. I guess various staff people will collect them shortly. Because this program is only 1 hour, we'll only be able to address a few questions. Questions will be selected at random. And then I added, please write neatly because I have to read the questions. And, okay, I'd like to introduce Sandy Barbour and Chuck Nevius. It happens I've written a book, not only wrote Beer and Circus, but I wrote a book about the history of Notre Dame, the University of Notre Dame, and its very famous football program. And so I spent a lot of time doing research at Notre Dame. And I guess it was about 8 years ago was when I first heard about Sandy Barbour. She was working in the athletic department there, and very frankly, there was discontent with the athletic director from various sides. And one day I had lunch with a friend of mine who was high up in the administration at Notre Dame. And he said, we were talking about the subject of the athletic director, and he said they should make Sandy the next athletic director. And he gave the reasons because of her extensive background in sports. She had been the AD at Tulane. She really has a very deep background in all facets of sports management, college sports management. And I said, well, would they make her athletic director? And he said, no, it's Notre Dame. You know, we're still weighed down by our all-male history. And because Notre Dame only went co-ed, I guess it was 1977 or so. And but Berkeley wasn't weighed down by a similar history, and it appointed Sandy its athletic director in September 2004. One of the things that's always impressed me about Sandy is her sympathy toward the academic side of the student-athlete label. All athletic directors pay lip service to that, but she has shown a genuine interest in the athletes' academic progress and their degrees. She's also aware of Berkeley's free speech history and is willing to speak at occasions such as this one. I've been doing research on college sports for 25 years now and have met many, many athletic directors all around this country. And almost every one of them, the only time they will speak to a group of alumni is if the alums are wearing the school colors from head to foot. And they only ask such questions as, how does it look for our dogs this year? And not having Berkeley education, they spell dogs D-A-W-G-S, usually. If you went to the University of Georgia, you're now really angry at me. But Sandy agreed to come today, and and sees this as part of the reason why she's at Berkeley. C.W. Nevius will interview her, and he's been with the San Francisco Chronicle for many years. He started as a sports reporter and sports writer. He evolved, he still writes about sports, but he evolved into a commentator on the San Francisco scene. And very frankly, I'm a fan of his work. I read it whenever it appears. But I'm often reminded of it when I get on BART and I hear that announcement that says, if you observe unusual behavior, please report it. Hey, this is San Francisco. As Chuck Nevius points out, the behavior norm in San Francisco is unusual, if not bizarre. And that's what he reports on every day. But to show you that there's another side of his personality, he also did a very good book for new fathers titled, wonderful title, Crouching Father, Hidden Toddler. a Zen guide for new dads. So if you're in that situation or you know someone who is, I recommend that book. I assume Chuck will have his sports writer cap on, as well as general citizen cap on, and will ask Sandy about the Cal Athletic Department and probably the recent cuts of teams. I see this event very much in the tradition of Berkeley free speech and open mind. It happens, I was a participant in the free speech movement in 1964. I was a young, new graduate student and changed my life. Berkeley absolutely changed my life. And I'm forever grateful to the education that I received. My wife is from a working class family in Oakland, received a wonderful education here. But as we all know, people at Berkeley have strong opinions about everything. But historically, we've listened to other people's opinions. At a time of Tea Party politics and the tendency to sort of shout opponents down, UC Berkeley stands for strong opinions and loud arguments, but also respect for everyone's right to speak. I assume that we'll stay true to that this afternoon. The schedule is for Chuck to interview Sandy for about 35 minutes and then open it up to the questions, and I'll moderate that. Please write succinct questions so that we can get as many as possible. I give you Sandy Barbour and C.W. Nevius.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Murray, for a great introduction. And if you'd like to order the book, I have copies. I would just like to echo what Murray said, and I intended to say it when we started. I think this is a great tribute to Cal, that you're having a discussion like that. This is what a university is about: diverse discussion, debate, and you know damn well they're not having this discussion at Notre Dame. Okay, that makes a big difference. I'd also like to echo it's great to have Sandy Barbour show up here and answer these questions. I had a chance to talk to her yesterday, and I can just promise you she's ready for just about any question you or I have. And finally, I would like to thank you for inviting me. One of the people that's organizing this said you might have an actual Berkeley moment, and I'm hoping that's really what happens. That'll be great. Let's get started. Sandy, we talked yesterday about only 14 of the 128 football schools reported a positive revenue source. The university here this year, $13 million is going to be spent, $170 million over the last 10 years spent for intercollegiate athletics. Isn't it clear that the financial model for intercollegiate sports is broken?
Well, there are a couple of parts to that response, and you know, I think the first is that I certainly believe, and I believe as a community, that Berkeley derives great value from having an intercollegiate athletics program, and that's not only in terms of the 800+ student athletes who actually participate, but the community at large. That there is value to a homecoming that has as one of its center points, you know, Cal versus UCLA on a Saturday afternoon in Strawberry Canyon in California Memorial Stadium, 70,000 people, and part of a reason to come back to this campus. It's the connection for a lot of our alumni. I think most of you know I'm born and raised on the East Coast, and I know that as I traveled to New York and traveled to Baltimore and Washington, D.C. and Orlando and Atlanta, that many of those connections are around what did the Bears do on Saturday night? What's Mike Montgomery and men's basketball doing? Isn't that great about our rugby national championship or our women's swimming national championship? Those kinds of things. It's a point of connection and a point of pride, especially for those that are away, that aren't here on a daily basis. But obviously, it serves as that for those that are close as well. But the other part of the answer is yes. You look at 128 1A institutions, the larger football playing institutions, and I think you used the number 14, actually either break even or make money. But I would challenge even that number. I think included in that number are several institutions that includes student fees. They do receive student fees. So I would even challenge that 14 number. But as you look at, as you weigh the value, you look at where we are economically, obviously very difficult economic time, and not just on this campus or in this state, but across the country. And what is the value to campuses? What can campuses afford? Obviously, that's something we just went through, and I think that one of the answers, and that answer is going to be different on every campus, but one of the things we have to do industry-wide is try to bring those costs down. What are the practices what are the things we're doing on a daily basis only because it's our competition is? And I think that would go a long way towards bringing intercollegiate athletics back into a better economic realm.
I know you've talked about the arms race in intercollegiate athletics, and it's just like any arms race, whatever the last person has, someone else has to have that or better. It's very likely you'll be in a conference where, particularly with football, a lot of the intercollegiate sports, they have monster budgets and they're extremely involved in their sporting programs. Isn't this just going to escalate? And is there a way, and I think we talked a little about it, isn't there a way to moderate this so that we don't end up just mutually assured destruction?
Well, there have been a lot of voices on the national scene over the course of certainly the last 18 months. I would actually say it's been longer than that, but the economic crisis, I think, has really brought it to a head. I know that this campus has asked Chancellor Bergeneau, as well as myself, and we have absolutely agreed to take a leadership role in trying to bring the economics down. It's not going to be easy. And yet you look at that 120 1A programs. Let's even use the 14. 14 are making money or breaking even. The other 100 and some odd are not. We're going to have those folks are going to be motivated to bring the economics of it down, and we've got to do it through presidential leadership, presidential and chancellorial leadership. But you've also got to have athletic directors in the room that are willing, have the ability, are willing, have the strength to look at some of the bigger engines, the footballs and the men's basketballs of the world, and say, look, you'll continue to compete, you'll continue to have the opportunity to be competitive because everybody will have, for example, less scholarships, or no one will be allowed to do this, so you're not competitively disadvantaged.
Salary caps, for example?
Well, salary caps, because of antitrust, you can't do.
Tough to do.
We learned our lesson as an association probably 15 to 20 years ago. We had something called the restricted earnings coach, and it was the third position in a number of programs, and it was capped at the time, and I guess maybe this is almost 20 years ago now, it was capped at $12,000. Well, we got sued, the association, got sued and lost to the tune of over $60 million. So we have to consider antitrust.
Nicely done. We can't be losing more money.
No.
Real quick on this, and I know that there's several hot button issues that just through the things you hear about the football program, for example. One of them I hear all the time is that Jeff Tedford's the highest paid civil servant in California, $2.4 million. You have to pay that kind of money to get a top coach. And I'll tell you another one that I hear all the time. It's much more minor, but just in terms of perception. Why does a football team have to stay at a hotel on the night before a home game? I mean, right? If people said that.
Well, and that would certainly be one of those cost containment or cost reduction issues or that I would take on. That's one of those things that I think is kind of inconsistent with our educational mission here, right. And that would absolutely be one that I would take on. You're not
a fan of that.
I'm not a fan of it. I think they do it to bring, and it's not just football. I mean, the legislation says you may house a team, a sport, in a hotel in your home area the night before a contest. It's just by practice, really. There are a lot of basketball programs that are doing it. We are not. But football does have a large number of folks. They do a lot of film the night before and some of those other things. I believe that could be done without the expense of a hotel. We do provide room and board for all of our scholarship kids. And frankly, and I know Jeff Tedford would not do this, but if a football coach looked at me and said, I have to have them together to make sure they behave, well, then we got another problem. We've got a worse problem than the financial one.
Right. If they can't be left alone one night, you've got a bigger problem.
We leave them alone the other 6 nights of the week.
I agree. When I think of Cal, I think of tradition. And there's another school, I can't think of the name of it, down south, there's another school down there. Drawing a blank. I can't remember what it is. Pac-10, there's somebody. But not as many of those students come from the area. And I think the thing about Cal we always think of is how many people come from the area, how many people in our newsroom, how many people I see in the street, we went to Cal. So tradition is so important. And with that in mind, here comes the tricky part. Why would you cut a program like baseball, which is the oldest sport at Cal? Was there any other option? Was there a way for baseball to raise the money itself? It's so iconic. Evans Diamond, everybody thinks about it at Cal. Was there another way to do that?
Well, I mean, obviously, we...
Just another softball question.
We make it a baseball question? Hardball. You know, I have said many times over the course of the last 10 days, whether it's in my 29 years in athletics administration, or whether it's my now going into my 11th year as an athletic director, dropping programs, reducing opportunities for student athletes is absolutely the last thing that you ever want to do. So I know your question is about baseball, but I'm actually going to look at it a little bit more holistically. You know, this is not something that we wanted to do. This is not something that we said, you know what, we need to get rid of that program. So this started with finances, and it ends with finances and economics, and then there's a whole lot of factors in between. And frankly, we determined as an institution, it started with the chancellor's determination of what the institutional support was going to look like on an ongoing basis, where we needed to get to, and then there really became two options. One is which is to reduce down to that number by taking it out across the board, across all 29 of our programs. The second one is the one we chose, which is to reduce the number of programs. And for me, the economics of what we needed to do, we've already been stretched very thin in terms of personnel. You take a look at where we rank in terms of dollars per student athlete. Currently, we're next to last in the conference in terms of dollars spent per student athlete. Part of that is because we have a lot of student athletes, we have a lot of programs. We're 10th, 9th, or 8th, 9th, or 10th in strength and conditioning, sports medicine support, all the different support services that are so critical to the success and the experience of our student athletes. So to take a significant dollar amount out over the existing programs, I felt really took us straight to mediocrity across the board. And even more than a broad-based, really robust, large number of programs that we're very proud of here, even more important than that, I kept focusing in on comprehensive excellence and having what we do be really, really good. And the only way that I saw to do that was to make the difficult decision to reduce our number of sports. Having said that, we believe that, well, we had to reach our financial goals. We had to end up with a balanced program from a gender equity standpoint, one that met Title IX. We had to end up with a program that was sustainable, and we had to end up with a program that we could properly provide support services and provide conditions for success for student athletes. All of them were painful.
I want to get to Title IX, but I wanted to give you a chance too. In terms of the number of programs, this is not unique at Cal. Programs are being cut in terms of, you have what now? We've lost gymnastics, rugby is a club sport, baseball. Now, how many programs?
In 11-12, because right now we're 29.
Right.
In 11-12, we will be at 24, which will continue to be the second highest in the Pac-10. Right. We're, I think, the 8th in terms of public institutions in Division I across the country, and still in the top decile of all Division I. And
just something, we talked about this the other day, but just something to keep in mind is watch other schools and see if they don't end up doing the same kind of thing. Title IX, as an athletic director, as a woman, what has the effect of Title IX been? I agree with that. I will stipulate to that. What has the effect of Title IX been?
Well, I mean, the overall effect of Title IX has been, I'm sitting here because of Title IX.
Right.
I am certainly the beneficiary of increased opportunities for women in you know, our particular subject right now. We also see a generation, you know, in our current 15 women's programs, a generation of young women who have just phenomenal opportunities, and it's due to Title IX. And I've always said, my father had 3 daughters. I've always said the best thing that ever happened to women's sports was fathers having daughters.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I'm also a sports fan because of my father, who, by the way, played college baseball. Interestingly enough, you know,
financially, how about financially?
Yeah, when we,
I think conceptually we all agree Title IX was a great idea.
When we get into a situation where finances become tight and you question whether you can continue to maintain a program of a certain size, then certainly Title IX comes into play. You can have 2 situations. You have a situation like ours where, because we had such a large program, we were able to comply with Title IX by what's called prong 3, which is full accommodation of interests and abilities. The other common prong is prong 1, which is strict proportionality. We're 53% female on this campus, 47% male enrollment as an undergraduate population. So if you're gonna be prong 1, you need to your student athlete population needs to mirror, within 1%, needs to mirror that population. So when folks who are already at prong 1 look at making sports reductions, they just have to make sure they make them proportionate. When you're at prong 3, which is where we currently are, and we are 56% male, this is in our student athlete population, 56% male, 44% female. If you're going to cut women's programs, you then have to immediately, you can no longer say we're fully accommodating the interest. You have to immediately go to prong 1, which is a huge complexity in our decision, and it did impact the shape of the decision that we made.
Rugby in particular.
Rugby, certainly, yeah. The decision to move rugby to a club sport or to a Cal Rugby tier was one that you know, on our list of criteria was maximize the student opportunity. Well, we move men's rugby to this different tier. Then their numbers are no longer counted in this proportional shift that we have to make. But our rugby program and the commitment from the university to our rugby program is that they are provided with the conditions for success, the opportunities that they need to maintain the clear, undisputed competitive excellence that they've had. Because their competition all compete in the very same tier. We have been the only varsity program in the country that has not had any particular advantages other than title, which again is another one of our motivations or the reasons that we felt we could move it, maintain their competitive excellence, but help address our problems in terms of the complexity of the decision.
I had an old editor that used to tell me there's no such thing as a dumb question, but this might prove me wrong. Why can't collegiate sports make money? Professional teams make money, and they have to pay their players. You get TV revenue, they get TV revenue, you get tickets, they get tickets. Why can't, and I'm not just here, but everywhere, why can't intercollegiate sports on a high level, Division I level, make money?
Well, our intercollegiate football program does produce a positive cash flow. Our men's basketball program does produce positives on the net income. There are a number of programs across the country where there are a couple, where women's basketball makes money. There's some ice hockey programs that make money. So those that you're talking about mirroring from a community standpoint, where the interest is and where the market is to have a $50 ticket or a $75 ticket or whatever the price is. College athletics has kind of mirrored the leagues in terms of the ability to produce revenue, whereas if you look at the professional ranks, the WNBA, not making money. the
Soccer league,
Major League Soccer, not making money. Certainly the W League in women's soccer is not making money. So I actually think they kind of mirror each other.
It makes a certain amount of sense. Let's put the spotlight out here just for a second. We were talking about Oregon the other day. Phil Knight decides Oregon State wins the baseball championship. He says, oh, we have to have baseball at Oregon. Phil Knight, owner and founder of Nike, brings back baseball, builds them a state-of-the-art baseball stadium, and now they're underway. Are we getting enough from Cal donors to keep programs going? I'm just lobbing them in here, Sandy. You can just hit them out if you want.
Well, I have to say this. When Professor Sperber indicated, I was at Notre Dame before I came to Cal, and the home of fervor, in terms of sports. Although we had some of the same discussions with our faculty, as you alluded to a little bit, but. I totally lost my train of thought.
Well, donors and the amount that donors are bringing in.
So I have to say there is more passion here. More passion about excellence, and there certainly is from an athletic standpoint. We get our share of that. I mean, we've seen in this decision the passion behind it, and there's more passion here than any place I've been, including Notre Dame, which is why I brought up the Notre Dame thing from the beginning. We need to do a better job in athletics in terms of. Making it clear what someone's philanthropy directed towards intercollegiate athletics, what it does, how it helps, what its impacts are. I think we've done a good job. Our donors have been, and our community have been very generous. We rank third in total dollars within the Pac-10 last year. Probably fourth or fifth in terms of actual number of donors to barebackers. But I am as convinced today as I was the day I took the job. One of the things that stood out for me, 450,000 living alumni. Wow, what great potential. What great, and now 6 years later, we've doubled where we were in barebackers, which was 4,000. Well, we're at 8,000, but that means that 442,000 of you I haven't gotten yet. And so I think there's tremendous potential. And I know that there's a huge group of those folks out there that believe in the value of intercollegiate athletics to this campus, and we need their help.
That's good. You're about to go into, you're at a very competitive conference in the Pac-10, and we mentioned earlier that it may even get more competitive if we get to 12 teams, and we have some of these teams, the Texases, the Oklahomas. I was going to say, I went to Colorado, but I'm not going to mention Colorado after this year, so let's skip that.
52-3.
All I can say is we left at halftime. That's all I have to say.
You got 3 points.
I know. We don't need the charity, Sandy. We just need a football team. But as people have pointed out, maybe as devil's advocate, the Harvard-Yale game is widely attended, incredibly it's well attended. People are very interested in it. There's a lot of excitement over it. They don't have to play at the highest possible level to have a very competitive, exciting team that alumni are thrilled with. Someone mentioned to me the other day that Butler University got to the final game of the NCAA championship and came within a shot that rimmed out of winning the national championship. And as someone pointed out, that coach's salary was about $400,000.
Not anymore.
Maybe not anymore. That's probably true. But the Duke salary, they're playing Duke, the salary of their coaches would have funded the entire program. Isn't it possible to run an enjoyable, competitive program that the alumni would love to be a part of and not have to go to this top level where everything is life and death?
Well, certainly the answer to that is yes. It is possible. You've just given all the examples. 25,000 folks attend the Harvard-Yale game, and they're passionate for their their team. And certainly those institutions have chosen to do that at that level. But if we're talking about finances here, if we're talking about the economics of that, if you look at the dollar amounts, the amounts of institutional support that Ivy League schools are providing to support intercollegiate athletics, it's way more than we're talking about here, even at our highest. Those figures are somewhere between 10 and I think the highest I've seen is about 22 million. So on an annual basis, because those schools have a lot of the expenses, not the same ones, salaries are different, absolutely, that's driven by the market. Salaries are different, but they have most of the same expenses, none of the revenues. And so that drives that equation. That if we decided we wanted to be part of the Ivy League, let's put the geography aside for a minute. That actually would cost us almost double what we're doing right now.
You'd have the same expenses, but you wouldn't have the income. Yeah. We talked a little bit earlier about sustainable athletics. What it would be to have a sustainable program, and as I understand it, that means I think what $5 million in 2014. There's no way that it's ever going to pay for itself?
Well, certainly, and every institution where I've been, that's the goal. That absolutely is the aspirational goal, because that would take a lot of, I've been fortunate to be at places where our student athletes were true student athletes. So that takes most of, not all, but most of the academic piece, puts it to the side. And so where the debate has always been has been about economics. It's been about money. It's been about that dollar to athletics could be used over here, which I understand. I absolutely understand that debate and that discourse. But if I lost my train of thought again.
Well, can it break even?
Thank you.
Yeah. It's that Colorado education.
It's
paying
you're
off.
way sharper than I am right now. Can we aspire to that? Absolutely. But if we bring value to the campus, and particularly as we were with 29 programs, even at 24, still very large, we're going to require, unless we have something that happens significant, which certainly could, whether it be huge success in football or basketball, or huge success on our endowment seating program, or fundraising takes off in a different way, or we get to the point where we have the opportunity to endow positions and to endow all of our scholarships that we pay the university for. If we would have some kind of huge success from a funding standpoint there, could I see that happening? Absolutely I could. But my point is that that's aspirational, and if we can get there while supporting 24 programs to comprehensive excellence, then it's worthy of investment by the university. And again, that number is going to be different on different campuses. I don't think you can take someone else's number and say, well, yours should be that, or ours should be that. I think that's, and again, that's the process that we've just gone through here to determine what's right for Cal.
Well, and you also have private schools. They're going to skew the finances, I guess, a little bit too, because they can pay as much as they want. That's not a problem with
any institution can provide as much as it wants. Right. But then there are tough decisions that are made about then where those dollars aren't going.
When I was in school, the athletes had an athletic dorm. They lived separate from the student population, and in a lot of cases, at a lot of the schools, didn't graduate. They were attending some classes, but not all classes. It looked as if they were professionals. The perception was that they're a little exclusive group all of themselves. I know we fought that perception at Cal, but you're now building this high-performance center. It's for a very small group. Not even all the athletic programs will be able to use it. Doesn't that feed the argument that we're separating this small group from the student body?
Well, first of all, the High Performance Center each and every one of our student athletes will have access to it. There will be a certain number of teams that were actually housed there, but what the services and the opportunities that are there will benefit every one of our student athletes in those 24 programs at the time. I see it as that these are, I talked about being stretched thin in personnel. We've also been, our facilities across the board have been substandard. That was addressed in the late 90s with Hospavilion in terms of one of our hubs down here. And now our student athletes have very good conditions in terms to train from a weight room standpoint, from a sports medicine standpoint. And our other hub of activity actually is around Memorial Stadium, and so our response, our answer to good, clean, from a square footage standpoint, I talked about being last per dollar, we've been last in square footage per student athlete of weight training and sports medicine facility. So yes, this building will service only student athletes, provide locker rooms, meeting rooms, offices, and sports science facilities for a particular relatively small part of the population, but that's providing them with the conditions that they need for success. If you look at Memorial Stadium right now, and all of you who attend games or come to the stadium for some other reason know that it's number one, it's seismically challenged at this point, yes. And this project is addressing that. But we also have a football program that's in a really small, bad, ventilation-challenged locker room, or actually they've moved to the surge facility, so they're not in it anymore. But that's not even the worst of it. Most of y'all have probably read our women's softball program doesn't have a locker room. They change in their cars. And I've not wanted to broadcast that for recruiting reasons, but it's the truth. Right. It's the absolute truth. Right. So is our football program going to get an upgrade in terms of their locker room and square footage? And absolutely. But some of our other programs are going to go from nothing to, again, good, clean, seismically safe space. It's as everyone will see when we open it up, it's going to be a nice building, absolutely. But it's really space for educational purposes around their athletic pursuits, but for the education of these student athletes.
And I may be wrong, maybe I don't have this right, but I think some of them are actually living in trees around maybe I have that wrong.
Those were never identified as our student athletes.
Just to give you a chance to say it, and that the High Performance Center is financed by?
Strictly private donations, as is the no public funds, as is the renovation of Memorial Stadium.
Which brings up the endowment seating program. I'm sure the alums are interested in that. I mentioned to you that I'm old enough to remember the Oakland Raiders. They were going to sell seat licenses. It was going to clear all the debt. Everything was going to be fine. The city of Oakland is still mired in trying to pay that money back. Are we confident that this program is going to work? And how, if an alum makes a commitment, what is that commitment in terms of length of time?
Well, there are a lot of differences in this program. First of all, there are a lot of differences in this program from a seat license. And one of the major differences, and this was designed to really get at what the passions of our community are about. But it is truly that. I mean, it's creating an endowment that will help us in the long term. It's going to be a while out there, but that will help us in the long term with our overall financial picture, and also will enable us to finance the actual renovations of the stadium, which there was no option. There was no option about doing that. The Regent said, if you're going to play football there, you have to fix it. And as I've said before, we're absolutely going to play football there because the alternative is to go play at the Oakland Coliseum, go play off campus. Then all the value that I talked about that athletics can help bring to the community, not if they're not coming to Berkeley, right. Not if they're not coming to California right. Memorial Stadium. And that's not to say anything about the fact that it's the most beautiful place in all of America, including Boulder.
I don't know. Boulder's
to play. Boulder's gorgeous, but it's no Strawberry Canyon.
All right.
To play college football. So it enables us to do that. And I have to say that the response from our community has been absolutely phenomenal.
How many of them are sold?
We've got about 2/3 of them sold.
Okay.
at this point. And the response has been phenomenal, particularly in the economic time that we're talking about. But we are talking about, depending on the seat, 30, 40, 50 years of seats, concession, some concession all in, your parking, and an opportunity, no price increase in your annual payments. But the most important thing is that there's great passion for this project. There's a great understanding of the need for it. And the response has been terrific.
That's great. I was hoping to even up a little bit more with this Colorado thing and badge you with some more questions, but I think we're just about out of time. I would just say I think we should give Sandy a hand for standing in here and taking the tough questions. Not that I'm the prosecutor of all time, but those are the questions I know that she's had to answer. And I saw Mike Montgomery last night actually at the baseball game, and I said I was talking to Sandy, and he said, "Oh boy, she's up to her rear end in alligators." So good for her for standing here and taking them. Murray, do you want to take over for questions?
Okay. They put the questions in this bag, and I guess it's like a lottery. Somebody's won a trip to LA or something. How does the High Performance Initiative play into efforts to reduce athletic expenditures?
Wow. Somebody out there knows what they're talking about. Yeah, actually, it's something we hadn't mentioned, but we have something called the High Performance Initiative, and actually the High Performance Center is the physical manifestation of the initiative. The High Performance Initiative is not the building, but it actually, and it was not designed necessarily to do this, but it's obviously with where we are now, it's terrific. It's really looking at efficiencies. How can we do things more efficient, more better? How can we do more better? Yeah. How can we do them? How can we do them better? How can we look at ways to be a high-performing, high-functioning organization? And quite honestly, it fits very well into the Operational Excellence Initiative, which has also been brought to campus. So I would say the High Performance Initiative is our little version of Operational Excellence.
Okay. Here's a question that's often asked. I know I've asked it myself. It seems to me, the questioner asked, that our athletic budget deficit could be easily funded by a few of our athletic alums who are making it big in the NFL, NBA, et cetera. Are we going after these fellows? After all, they honed their skills here. In fact, they wouldn't play in the NBA here.
Yeah. And that is a question that is asked frequently. And I think you all know we have a number of very recent of our alums that are playing in the NFL, a couple of them very high profile, and they had great experiences at Cal, and they are certainly being cultivated, but they're also pretty new to this money, and I'm not sure they're quite ready to part with sizable gifts. But I will also say that, but we will keep hammering away at them, believe me. This is a phenomenon across college athletics that there are very few professional athletes who are giving back substantial dollars to their programs. And I don't know, I mean, your guess is as good as mine as to absolutely the reason. But one thing that I have heard, and I've heard this from, we had a lot of professional athletes at Notre Dame, guys that particularly went on to the NFL. And one of the responses is, I've given to my university. I've given to my university. I helped put 70,000, 80,000, 90,000 people, folks in the stands every Saturday. I allowed the university to sell my jersey with my name on it. So I don't mean to represent that as the way everyone, all of them feel, but I have heard that as a particular as a particular reason.
Yeah, no, I've heard that too. I remember a football player in the NFL saying to me, hey, I'm not going to be able to walk at the age of 50. I think they got enough from me. Here's a interesting, tough question. Could an earmarked gift by an alumnus, foundation, or other donor revive the canceled baseball program? If so, how much of an investment would be required? It's too bad he or she didn't sign their name. Oh, there, the gentleman raised his hand.
I actually think Chuck should take this question.
Is that a check, actually?
Yeah, as you can imagine, I've been meeting with, and others in the university have been meeting with and hearing from a large number of our alumni, parents, current student athletes, former student athletes, just a large number in the community about, well, we realize you've made this decision, but what can be done to reverse it? What can be done to turn it around? And certainly this started with finances. And if there were a financial answer to our entire problem, we didn't drop these programs because we don't want them anymore. We had to make a very, very difficult decision. The complicating factor is that it can't be one sport at a time. Because of the things that we talked about in terms of having to create in the end, shift from prong 3 to prong 1 and create a balanced program, that they all have to move together, or the result has to be that we create a balanced program. So it's not as simple as just funding baseball, funding rugby, funding lacrosse, funding gymnastics, and one by one bringing them back.
Another question I would just have with that is, you see it in European soccer leagues. You see professional golfers. You see stock car racers with advertising all over them. It would certainly bring in considerable revenue. Is there any thought? Is there any prohibition in doing something like that in college sports?
NCAA rules prohibit that on the student athlete, but obviously we're allowed to do that in our venues.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But there was a time when you couldn't do it in the venues, so I would say in the next 10 years you'll see it on the uniforms. What would it take to get baseball or any of the other cut sports back? Well, you've sort of answered that. But the second question, now that the sports are cut, can you balance the budget?
Well, that certainly was the analysis that we were doing, and the 18 months of taking a look at what we needed to do to create a sustainable financial model. And with the Chancellor's commitment of $5 million in institutional support, and what we've projected that we can and obviously need to do in terms of our other revenue streams of ticket sales and philanthropy, barebackers. One of the things we've not talked about today, but the Pac-10, which will then be Pac-12 media rights, we certainly have factored that in at I think, reasonably conservative amount. There's a lot of talk out there that's for a lot of institutions, not just Cal, that's the savior. And I think they've set us up a little bit for failure there, because is it going to help? Absolutely. But it does not completely address the entirety of our issues.
I would just say right now this should be called a 12-pack.
12-pack, yeah. Yeah.
So we're clear.
We might get more people to pay attention.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Anything you can do.
Here's a question that's often asked, and I know I'm curious. Couldn't money be saved by not sending many minor sports teams? Minor sports are now generally called non-revenue sports, and
we call them
the coaches call them Olympic sports. But, okay, we know what we're talking about. Sending these teams all over the country, why couldn't they schedule games closer, compete with teams in the state or nearby?
Yeah.
I know
a couple of answers to that question. First of all, if you look at our budget and you look at places to save money and reduce costs, we're talking about relatively small dollar amounts in our Olympic sports. So the places that you can go and pull money out to reduce our costs are so small. But then the other is that our institutional value on comprehensive excellence, and having each and every one of our programs have the opportunity to compete for a national championship. We have a fabulous women's crew program. We have a fabulous men's crew program. To tell them that they couldn't go east once a year or at some point in time to compete against some of the top teams in the country. We're fortunate. We have a number of them here on the West Coast. But to restrain them from a competitive standpoint would not be true to that value of comprehensive excellence or giving them the opportunity to reach the highest level in their program. If we don't have the opportunity to do that, I don't think we should have the program.
Is this the last of the cuts?
We have a commitment from our chancellor that it absolutely is. This was painful for all of us, and what we have ended up with is a program, albeit smaller by 5 programs, that is still robust and large, given the statistics that we talked about. And if we continue to have financial issues, we'll have to find ways within the program to do that, because he is committed to these 24 sports.
Okay. Okay. I think a lot of people want to ask this one. Please explain exactly what changes for rugby with club status as opposed to varsity sports status. What does rugby lose? What does rugby gain?
We'll go into light beer after the
Well, as I indicated before, one of the reasons that again, all of these moves were not the ideal in terms of we would have preferred to have remained status quo. But one of the reasons that part of the solution was to move rugby to this different tier was because they would be able to compete for the same national championship. They would be able to compete against the exact same competition. So what changes? I think the 2 things absolutely that change are that they will be completely self-funded. At this point, as a varsity program, and certainly there is some difference of opinion here, but in particular in indirect costs, there is some cost to the intercollegiate athletics program of having rugby. They will now need to be completely self-supporting from a financial standpoint, and then they will report somewhere different. I would say those are the 2 absolute differences. I'm very pleased to say that Coach Clark and our university administration have been working very diligently over the course of they've been talking over the course of the last 10 days, but really over the course of the last couple of days, gotten down to really looking at, okay, what are the elements required for rugby to maintain their ability to win national championships, right? Back to the values that I've been talking about, and things such as access to sports medicine, high quality sports medicine care, and strength and conditioning, and academic support. I think those are the things that are critical to the success of the student athletes. And then there are a number of other things around. I mean, we've talked about letters, the Big C letter, and some other things that may not be directly to actual competitive level, but are important to our rugby community. And those are the kinds of things that Jack and our administration, and then ultimately the greater rugby community, have really started to talk about. And I've always believed that, although unfortunate, the move, that it would not mean that they could not continue to win national championships, because the young men in that program this community is very, very proud of, and their ability to espouse excellence and achieve excellence, not only on the field but in the classroom, is something this entire community is very, very proud of.
Right. And they beat all these other schools who were at the club level, so we can beat them again. Okay. Thank you very much. That certainly was
I want to personally thank you for coming today. It makes me proud to be a Bear on a variety of levels. I know there is definitely not unanimity of opinion on this subject, and this is so classically Berkeley to hear to hear at least one side, and a very eloquent side, and there's certainly other voices. So thank you very much, number one. Number two, you got a survey when you came in. We'd love it if you take just a couple minutes to fill that out and hand it in as you walk out, would be great. There's also another event here at 3:30, so get the heck out of here, for criminy sakes. Thank you very much. Let's hope we see a lot of you tomorrow at the UCLA game. Go Bears!